Do you feel like you have what it takes to be successful? Yet every step you take, you feel like you're failing backwards? Well, on today's show, my guest, Aaron Trahan, is a performance mindset coach, and he's going to teach you how to get out of complacency, change your mindset, and step forward into success. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show, Mind Your Thoughts podcast, where every day we're shifting our mindset by minding our thoughts. Today we have a very special guest on. His name is Aaron Trahan. Aaron has a 15 plus year progressive background as a senior level executive leader within public company corporate environments. Aaron is passionate about personal development and being a performance coach who is professionally trained and certified. How you doing, Aaron?
Hey, Mark, thanks for having me. So glad to be here.
Thanks for being on. I appreciate you. I want to lead off with what I think is very important in the mindset area, and that is comfort zone. It's a killer. It's a killer of your dreams and everything else. And in what you do, that's a big factor in pushing people out of that comfort zone. So, do you want to touch on that to get this thing rolling?
Oh, I'd love to. And it's such a big, bold, just word, the comfort zone. And, I work with a lot of high performers. Some of them really focused on the sales side. And what I always like to say is there's so many people that are incredibly skilled and talented at sales, but the absolute best salesperson on the planet is the
Mm-hmm.
voice from inside the comfort zone. It can convince us to um, do anything to stay away from stretching ourselves, from challenging ourselves, to leave the comfort zone and really operate on the edges of our current capabilities. It's always going to be there to give us a free pass to stay safe, to not feel uncomfortable, to not be challenged. And so, as a result, you said it best. It's a killer. I mean, the comfort zone makes status quo feel so warm and fuzzy, the place you never want to leave. And the other side of that, the important thing that we all have to remember is, as great of a salesperson as the comfort zone is, it will never be upfront and honest with us that no growth lives there. You simply
Mm-hmm.
can't grow. You simply can't become the best version of yourself from inside the comfort zone. And once you get too ingrained into it with each and every single passing day, it just becomes that much more difficult to leave.
Why
Um,
is it? Why is it so difficult to leave? You think?
yeah. I think, the biggest thing that shows up that I see each and every single day is kind of a perspective that not many people think about. And so when you think about the combination of success plus experience, when we just
Mm-hmm.
sit just top of mind, when we think about having success and we think about generating experience in a particular field, area, or domain, that's good. We feel good about that. It's like, sure, I want that. But
Mm-hmm.
think about the psychology of what happens. Think about the mindset that starts to evolve as success starts coming in, as we develop more experience. There's a downside to that. And that is we start to get comfortable with that status quo. We
Ah,
maybe don't push as hard as we initially were pushing before the success and experience came in. And
yeah.
why the comfort zone is so great is that it can get us in the comfort zone without even us knowing it. And so we feel good. We feel, we've let our guard down. We've got a little success now. We've got some experience. And so once we kind of get in that status quo, we accept the comfort zone. Now, when we look out and want to go take on new challenges, want to be stretched, want to be challenged, we want to kind of go out and that uncharted waters, it's now that much more difficult. We've got more people
Mm-hmm.
watching us. We don't want our peers to see us do something that would lead to failure. Uncertainty
Mm-hmm.
now takes on a completely different meaning. Um, And so, without a lot of people even kind of realizing the downside of having success plus experience, it almost traps us into a comfort zone that it's so tough to leave at that point in time.
Yeah.
And so it's really that fear of failure. It's that fear of rejection. And as we
Hmm.
go up to higher and higher levels in our career, that fear of failure almost becomes a bigger and bigger fire that we just don't want to touch. We by default become
Yeah.
a bit more risk averse. Um, and so it's this tricky relationship that we have around uncertainty, around failure, around potential missteps. That the comfort zone is always going to be right there to take advantage of.
Yes. Complacency is a killer. So, what is a performance mindset?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that I love to really break down into kind of what I refer to as my 70-20-10 mindset rule.
Okay.
Um, and when you think about the different type of mindsets that exist, especially the ones that are most commonly known, I tend to think about mindsets and kind of a mapping of a mindset in just about every single room, every single group, every single team that I've ever been a part of. The 70-20-10 rule generally exists. Let's start with the
Hmm.
20%, the easy ones to identify. The 20% in just about every group is going to have individuals made up of the fixed mindset category.
Okay.
They're set in their ways. They really prioritize status quo. They don't want to see change. This could be for a number of different reasons. The most common one is they're probably closer to the end of their career. So, let's just call it the old dogs who don't want to learn any new tricks.
Yeah. Yeah.
The 70% is here's where it really gets interesting. Every time that I kind of talk about a growth mindset, that foundational belief with the right energy, time, and effort, you can develop new skills, new capabilities, have the belief system to overcome obstacles and really achieve new things. 70 to 80% of the room is always going to raise their hand. Yep, I identify with that.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
now when you zero in on their habits, their routines, their actions, the operating system they're living by, there's not a whole lot of action in most cases going behind those beliefs. So they believe the right things, they think all the right things, they'll bring up growth mindset type of topics in the conversations. And you go to their LinkedIn, they're probably posting all the right things too. But there's this big step of being able to take action that you don't see
Hmm.
with the vast majority of that group. So that then leaves me to the
Yeah.
10% to kind of get back to your question. What is a performance mindset? It is this group of individuals that typically only make up about 10% of each group or each room that really put the action. They have the willingness and the desire to put into action all the things that they believe about a growth mindset. So, what growth mindset is to thinking and believing that you can achieve new things, increase your capabilities, overcome obstacles. A performance mindset is putting that into action. And I think so few
Hmm.
people actually put action behind that. Um, it's easy for us to look in the rearview mirror and feel good about our past accomplishments, feel good about our past achievements, and maybe even lean a bit too heavily on that. The performance
Hmm.
mindset group doesn't prioritize that. They're looking forward. They want to find out what they're truly capable of. How great can they actually be? They
Yeah.
embrace failure. They know that it's
Right.
not going to be a win after win after win 100% of the time when they're stretching and
Yeah.
challenging and finding out what are they truly capable of achieving. And so it's that big difference between putting action behind the beliefs and then just letting the beliefs stay kind of static without any real action
Mhm.
behind it.
Yeah. And how does fear play into that? How can you overcome fear and take action towards your goals?
Yeah, I think when you think about fear, it's the single biggest catalyst that creates inaction.
Hmm.
The fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of any number of things. What sits on the other side of that is inaction. right? And so
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
when you think about taking action or not taking action, it's just human nature to wait for the perfect pitch. How many times
Yeah.
have you heard that? Like,
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the right moment. I'm waiting for the
Yeah.
right
Wait
opportunity.
until I'm ready to do it.
I
That's
mean, just
also, yeah.
yeah, it's just like I'm
Yeah.
waiting for the economy to get better. I'm waiting for there to be more sunshine and less rain, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've almost programmed our mindset to wait for the perfect opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But the secret is there is no perfect opportunity. It doesn't
No.
exist. That's a ghost that if you're truly waiting on that perfect moment, you're going to be waiting your entire life for something that's not going to show up. So
Mm-hmm.
to overcome that fear, I work with my clients to really start embracing a different perspective around imperfect action.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not trying to set ourselves up to wait for someone to knock on our door and deliver us an opportunity on a silver platter of saying, here's your green light, here's the time to take action. But
Yeah.
if we think about taking imperfect action, every first step is not going to be perfect. There is no perfect. So if we can embrace imperfect action and think about how that feeds the confidence competence loop, that's where you can start building some momentum and overcoming the fear. And it's just a bit of a
Uh-huh.
changing of the relationship of saying anything I do is going to be imperfect, but I'm going to learn
Yeah.
from it. It's a learning opportunity. And so any
Uh-huh.
action is going to help me increase my competence in any area, which will
Yeah.
then give me more confidence in that area. And with more confidence, I'm now more willing to take more imperfect action. And so
Mm-hmm.
overcoming the fear is just disassociating ourselves with perfection. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so if we can embrace imperfection and say, there's no downside to taking action because I'm going to learn from that, increase competence, which will increase my confidence. That's going to open
Mm-hmm.
the door for more action to be taken and overcoming the fear. And so it's really just changing our perspectives and the relationships that we have around these things, around waiting for the perfect moment or overcoming the fear to take action. Embrace that it's not going to be perfect. And I think when we can do that, all of a sudden the things that we hold in our minds to have such importance around fear of
Yeah.
failure or fear of rejection, all of a sudden kind of loses its power to prevent us from taking action.
Mm-hmm. So that's a good point. I think on the other side of that is setting goals. Setting
Hmm.
goals is like a roadmap to your success, I believe, personally. What are some best practices for setting goals that you would
Yeah,
recommend?
yeah. It's a great question. It's like if you don't know where you're going, then
Mm-hmm.
it's inevitable you're going to get lost and have to take many detours and probably end up down a lot of dead end roads. And so when
Yeah.
I think about a goal, the most common, let's just say, error that I see around goal setting structure is quite frankly too much importance put on the goal. If we just take a
Yeah.
step back and think about the goal, right? The thing that's sitting at the top of the mountain that we're going up to climb, that's
Mm-hmm.
just the output. And so
Yeah.
when we over prioritize the output, by default, we then under prioritize the steps, the milestones, and the process that we have to put in place and execute on to get us there. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm a firm believer that the goal should drive your process.
Mm-hmm.
And if your process and your goal are misaligned, the probability of goal achievement drops pretty low. And so, if you're
Mm-hmm.
not building the system and the process at which it takes you to reach your goal, you're not developing the inputs that ultimately kind of give you the outputs. And so, the big mistake that I see with goals, and we'll just use a common one. Let's talk about the a goal that we all set for ourselves every single year that we get super excited about and motivated about, the New Year's
New
resolution.
Year's. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah.
How
There's
many
a
of them we
reason.
achieved? Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason when you think about New Year's resolutions that
Mm-hmm.
24% of people never make it out of the first week with their goal
Right.
being intact.
Mhm.
Another, I believe 60% of people never make it out of the first month of the goal
Yeah.
being intact. And so, why is that? It speaks to the psychology and the big error around goal setting. We're so fixated on the output. That's what
Output.
motivates us. There's no motivation for the journey. There's
Mhm.
no there's no focus on the journey. And so weight loss is such a big one. Sure,
Yeah.
you may want to lose the 25 pounds. What's your strategy for tomorrow? What's your goal for this week? What's your goal by the end of the
Mhm.
first month? A lot of
What's
the
the
times when you
discipline?
ask those follow
Yeah.
up questions, you're going to get a deer in headlights. I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm just going to go buy a new pair of shoes and try and figure it out.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
and so there's so much about almost deprioritizing what the goal is and shift the focus more on the very next step, the very step after
Mhm.
that. What's the daily goal that drives your weekly goal, that drives your monthly goal? That's ultimately how you get there. But so many goal setting structures have that in reverse. They're just trying to keep the
Mhm.
goal as the main priority when that's just the output.
Yeah. So, for the ones that do achieve their goals, what are the biggest mistakes successful professionals make that you've seen?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's, goals can take on many different shapes, many different forms, many different varieties. And I think when the goal becomes finite is when things
Mhm.
can get very tricky. And so Simon Sinek is famous for kind of talking about the finite game versus the infinite game, right? And I think
Mm,
the
right.
same holds true to goals. And so if you don't have something that continues to keep you going, if
Mhm.
you don't have a built in process, if you don't focus on continuous improvement, think about what happens on the other side of goal achievement. You hit
Mhm.
the goal, great, you celebrate. What does that very next day look like? It's kind of empty, right? You don't, what's going to
Yeah.
keep you moving forward? How are you focusing on continuous improvement or
Yeah.
asking the big question, what's next? If you don't know what next is, you're very likely to give up a lot of the momentum, a lot of the focus that you had on the process. It's going to be very difficult to kind of maintain that on the other side of goal achievement. And I like to say that there's the biggest pain point besides not achieving the goal is achieving a goal that was kind of the wrong goal. If it's too finite, if you're chasing something that won't continue to carry you forward, things can get a little bit tricky. And so I think it's always important to kind of understand the why behind the goal, what's it kind of leading to, and be much more focused on the milestones along the way and not the end output.
Yeah. What are the downsides of success?
Yeah, yeah. I think you used a word that really early on in the conversation that I think highlights it perfectly, and it's complacency. That's the
Complacency.
single biggest thing that I continue to see, and it kind of goes back to that equation is if it goes unchecked, that success plus experience has a way of breeding complacency. And so once we start to get comfortable, once we start to feel like we've made it, we stop being a learn it all and we start becoming a know it all and start developing that belief that we may be the smartest person in the room. We've left
Mhm.
some big cracks in the doors for complacency to start sneaking its way in. I've
Mhm.
personally experienced this where you kind of let the success and the hype and the ego get inflated and kind of wake up maybe 6 months later, 12 months later, and then you're kind of like, wow, I slipped into a fixed mindset. I think I have this thing all figured out. I quit
Right.
learning. I quit developing. I quit growing because I thought I made it.
Stop
Um,
being on the edge. Yeah.
that's
Sharp
right.
like a
That's
razor
right. You
blade.
you
Yeah.
yeah, you stop, that mindset of continuous
Mhm.
improvement of how do I get
Right.
1% better every day?
Mhm.
We can talk about fear, we can talk about a lot of external factors, but the one thing so many people overlook is success plays an extraordinarily big role in that. And too much
Yeah.
success without treated properly from a mindset standpoint can actually
Mhm.
be the thing that takes us away from continuing to strive to be better. It gives us a sense that we've made it, we can stop pushing a little bit. And that's just a very, very slippery slope.
So what's your take on failure? Should we embrace it? Why is it important to change our perspective around failure?
Yeah, kind of. It's kind of going back to what we kind of mentioned earlier, and it's this risk aversion that we have to it. I think so many people, when you talk to them, think of failure as this big bad word. It's the fire that we're kind of afraid to touch because we know we're going to get burned. And so,
Mm-hmm.
as a result, by us trying to avoid failure, we are only looking for things that we know has a high probability of success. And when we do that, we're lowering the ceiling of what we're potentially capable of. Or said differently, we're creating an express path into the comfort zone. And
Yeah.
so, there's such a negative stigma that comes from failure. And look, let me preface this by saying is it should be no part of any plan or any strategy to go out and try to fail. That should
Yeah.
never be the goal.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of that coin is you need to expect when you're doing anything that's going to stretch you, that's going to challenge you, that's going to bring you to the edges of your capabilities, you also have to accept at the same time some
Yeah.
degree of failure is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not something to be avoided. It's not something to be planned for. It's simply part of the journey. So when we can
Yeah.
change our perspective on how we embrace failure, not for the sake of failing, but more what failure can deliver to us. And failure is such an incredible learning feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, failure will teach us more lessons than winning every day ever will. And so when
Yeah.
you can take failure, learn from it, recalibrate your approach, and then chart a new course with that experience, with that learnings, you can kind of take a step back at that point and say, failure can be one hell of a great teacher if you're prepared to be a great student. And so it doesn't have to be something that we avoid at all costs. And if we do try to avoid it, it's the surest way that you're going to find yourself in a comfort zone without question.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I find that being uncomfortable is when I feel like I personally grow. And my failures that I have had along the way, I feel like I use them as stepping stones towards success. So that's all good, noteworthy stuff around performance mindset, which is what you
Mhm.
teach. You also teach something called the 3-out success formula. Can you touch on that? Does that relate to your performance mindset?
It sure does, Mark. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's because at an early age, ever since I remember in my first internship, I started to kind of notice a difference, and it does speak directly to the conversation we're having. Is that there's two groups of people, both successful, but one group of successful people, they find that success, and once they achieve it, whatever their kind of goal was at that moment in time, that becomes their plateau. Success
Mm-hmm.
almost creates a wall that they can't get over. And so they reach that success point, they plateau out, and the gradual decline starts to happen. Where I saw another group of successful people that somehow continue to tap into new levels of success after new level after new level. So they never plateaued. They just seem to find a different level, and then find a level after that. So it became this dichotomy around why do some successful people find new levels of success while other ones
Mm-hmm.
kind of burn out and plateau out way early. And I
Mm-hmm.
really wanted to distill this down into a formula. It's like, can I create almost a bullet point checklist for myself that what are the common themes that show up between these two groups that if you could do these two, three, four things, however many it was, you nearly guarantee continued success for yourself. And so here's what I observed, and here's what we kind of coach on through programs and in my engagements. Is it's really the 3-out formula, and these were the three things that show up every single time without fail in that group that finds the new levels versus the group that kind of plateaus out. The first one is they
Mm-hmm.
out prepare essentially everyone around them. They're just incredible students throughout their career. They always do their homework. They're always doing the due diligence. They're never the people that show up and are just unprepared. That they're just not ready for kind of the worst case scenario. They're not to say they're right all the time, but there's a tremendous amount of thought and preparation that goes into their position, their thesis, or their strategy. And so they just never lack preparation. Number two is
Okay.
they outwork everyone around them. And this is not hustle culture
Mm-hmm.
speak where they walk around wearing a badge on their shoulder saying, I worked 80 hours this week. It's not about that. It's much more about execution. They're just
Mm-hmm.
able to figure out ways to get more done. We all have a finite amount of time, we all have 24 hours in our day. The group that found new levels of success simply found ways to just make more out of the hours that they had versus the other group. So they were just master executors in being able to get things done. And then, third, and arguably the most important, they outlearned everyone around them. And it kind of speaks to everything that we're talking about here is they were able to so effectively
Mm-hmm.
counterbalance complacency with learning. They were just
Mm-hmm.
never ending lifelong students. And so it doesn't matter if they were the highest ranking or highest paid person in the room, they were showing up to every single meeting and every single opportunity to figure out how to connect more dots, how to learn more, how to understand not just what was happening through a report, but why things were happening. What was the catalyst?
Yeah.
How do we take in this new information and apply it? And so those three things showed up every single time whenever I kind of looked at these two groups. And I always like to challenge people and by saying, you show me someone who consistently out prepares, outworks, and outlearns everyone around them and doesn't find new levels of success. And I've yet to have anybody show me an example. I'm still looking for it, but it just kind of
Yeah.
goes to show that if you can stress test this and these become your three boxes, these become your operating system, you give yourself the greatest probability to find new levels of success.
Oh, that's awesome. So the people that get it, right? For the group that plateaus out, do we give up on them, or are they unreachable? Are they unteachable? How does that go for the listener out there that believes in themselves but not enough to take action? Is there hope for them with in your program, Aaron?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything that we've discussed is not static. So just because you may find yourself kind of going back to that mindset rule, just because you may find yourself in the 20% group, and hey, I've been there. Everything that I'm speaking about, I'm speaking from personal experience. I had my
Mm-hmm.
share of early success, inflated my ego. I kind of became uncoachable and thought I was the smartest person in the room and woke up and said, whoa, I'm a 20 percenter. I've got to fix this. I've got to go out and, surround myself with the people that can catalyze me to move back into the 70% and to the 10%. And so nothing is static. And I think one simple way to just really make sure that you're always understanding what a roadmap to improvement can look like for you is think of just take two or three people. Who are your most trusted advisors and mentors? The people you know without a shadow of a doubt that want to see you succeed and improve, and start building in a habit of asking those type of people a very simple question. How can I improve? How can I get better? Not looking backwards, but looking forwards. How would you advise me to get better in the future? And everything they say is not going to be 100% applicable, but one thing I can assure you and guarantee you, there will be nuggets of wisdom in there that you can use to build a roadmap and a blueprint going forward to increase your levels of success. It's kind of, it goes back to a 100-year-old saying from Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you will always be
Be
right.
right.
And so if no matter where you find yourself, no matter what the looking backwards looks and feels like, you can always create a path forward for yourself that looks different. If you think you can, with a few tools and surrounding yourself in the right cultures, environments, and by asking a couple smart questions, the roadmap is always there for you to be found to unlock new levels of potential and success.
Mhm. So there it is for you listeners out there that halfway believe in yourself. If you think you can, if you think you can't, you're right. You heard it from Aaron. Aaron, this is some good stuff, and I believe your programs are wonderful, wonderful programs to help with people's mindset out there. And if they're needing to get a hold of you, in touch with you, and are interested in your programs, how can they do that? How can they get a hold of you, Aaron?
Yeah, I would say right now the best place to find me is let's connect on LinkedIn. Let's start there. I'm heavily engaged in LinkedIn, constantly posting daily content. So even if you want to follow me to kind of get a dose of this every single day, it's the absolute best place to start. And from there, let's just have a conversation. Let's just see if
Okay.
let's see if my programs are able to be that catalyst and that springboard to get you from your version of good to your version of great. Um, but I can assure you there's value to be had of just getting a daily dose of helping you believe that you can. And that starts with, yeah, let's connect on LinkedIn.
Okay. What are your credentials on there? Do you have a screen name or anything like that on there?
Yeah, just Aaron Trahan and you'll see it at Performance Mindset Coaching.
Okay.
You type
Sounds
in you
good.
type in those things, I'm going to pop right up.
All right, sounds good. All right, so that's what this show is all about, bringing you guys like Aaron to help you guys with your mindset. He's a great performance mindset coach. And if you want to get in touch with Aaron, looking up on LinkedIn, go from there. And I'm pretty sure he'll get back a hold of you, and you guys will be linked in together and get this mindset on a roll. Aaron, I really appreciate you showing up today for the show, and I believe you're going to bring this audience great value with what you do, and I thank you, and hopefully we can get you back on sometime soon.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Thank you, and always remember, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. If this video helped you out in any way, please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification button so you can check out more videos just like these.